Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today's episode is about how change comes when you see what you can do. I'm so excited to have this guest on the podcast today because I've already learned so much from her about a world that I never thought I would have the opportunity to explore. Saskia Coomber is the newest podcast host on Be the Change Media Network, and her podcast, The B-Side, launched yesterday, the 17th of June, 2025. On her podcast, Saskia takes an honest look at the UK music industry, and it was great to pick her brain about her podcasting process so far. So without further ado, let's get started with this episode featuring Saskia Coomber.
I'm Saskia. My DJ name is Sassy, and I'm the creator and host of the B-Side, which takes an honest look at the UK music industry. And it all came about because I work in the music industry, and it's kind of intending to, take a peek behind the curtain and give a very realistic view of what it actually means to work in music. And hopefully, it's enlightening to people who aren't just, working in music, but also those that are just fans and know how it works, but not really, the day to day of things. So, yeah, hoping to shed some light for everyone and not just, the enthusiasts.
Amazing. I love that. Can you tell me a little bit about what got you started in the music industry? What made you want to get involved in that, do that with your life? Tell me that whole background. I know that that's a big question. So tell me as much as you would like. But yeah, tell me that story.
Yeah, so like most people, I would say in the industry, it just starts like as a kid, you're super into whatever you're into in terms of genres. I was lucky to kind of have both parents super into music, but like different genres. So I'd say my taste is quite eclectic. And so, like, if go on my Spotify, like, shuffle, it is insane. So, I like that though, because it means that wherever I go, whatever music's playing, like, I'm happy.
That's so good. That's a great way to be.
Yeah, it's great. Connect with anyone. And yeah, the point is that it was something that I'd always done. Like, I've always sung, played instruments, like GCSE, A level was always music something or other. So it's always been a through line. This is what I kind of reiterate on the podcast as well, is that you don't have to have studied music to get into the industry. So for instance, myself, I actually studied acting when it came to like studying time and being 18 and going somewhere. And I did that for from like 16 to, I don't know, mid-20s, and was doing all of the theatre and all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of got a bit tired of it. I was just a bit like, this isn't for me anymore. And I always thought I had to do one thing. And now I'm a bit older, I realize you can do all the things. Like, don't cut yourself off. Like, you can literally do whatever you want. So then once I put the acting to bed, I was kind of like, what else am I passionate about? And it was a no-brainer. It was music. And so then I just managed to get a job at this place called BPI, which is basically the trade body for UK recorded music. So any kind of tracks that you hear, like the recording side, there's two sides, I won't go into it now, but it's for basically label side essentially. And they represent labels and basically the industry in Parliament. They work with Parliament funding artists to market in other territories. They do loads of different things. They do member events, and that was a really great way to learn just how the industry works, how the music of business works. Because I entered as a fan, and I had no clue. I was there for the vibes, and yeah, and I learned so much, and it's just gone on from there. I joined a major record label. I was there for 4.5 years. And then, yeah, I left and started doing more personal projects, like the DJing, but like actually as a professional and presenting and all these things. And just while I was having talks with my friends in the industry, we were just talking about the things, the good but and the bad, the things that people don't discuss, that aren't like as sexy or whatever you want to call it, but that is everyone's day to day. And they were just like, you should do a podcast. I would listen to this. This is so interesting. Da, da, da. As people do. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it just kind of stuck in my brain. Like I'm an avid podcast listener. And it kind of dawned on me, for what I'm exposed to, there isn't much out there about the reality of working in music, and how it's not all glitz and glamour, and you're not always at parties with like Dua Lipa or Ed Sheeran or whatever. So yeah, that is basically it. It's me and a guest or two just chatting about our experiences. And that was a really long answer.
No, 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 no. That's great. I think that is amazing. And now I would love to know a little bit about some of your favorite moments, but maybe also some of the hot takes, I guess, about the UK music industry. I think it's a world that so many people, like you said, might not know anything about, but it is something that is so interesting to everyone because we all listen to music, we all love music. So tell me some of those moments.
The people I've invited are people I know, so I know their story, I know what they're doing, but I hadn't actually realized every episode of talking to someone that's set up something themselves, whether it's a record label, whether it's some kind of social justice organization. Like it's actually blown my mind how, because of the climate of the industry, people have felt the need to set things up themselves. And it's really something that struck me uh, quite hard. I don't know, when people and they're doing things and they're being, self-sufficient, but there's actually, the reason is because it's needed. The opportunities, unfortunately, aren't always there for people from, say, lower socioeconomic backgrounds. People are getting prosecuted in UK courts for the music that they listen to. People aren't getting a foot in the door because they don't know anyone, and they don't look like anyone that the hiring person knows. So they don't get given that chance. And it basically kind of works similar to any other big corporation. It has all of the same issues. And that's the thing that I really kind of, I mean, it stresses itself. I don't need to hammer it home. But then the talking to people, it's it's kind of twofold. You work at these corporations, organizations, and you get to know the people that are higher up that are making those decisions. But because you are at your level, there's only so far you can go with that. And it it's hard when you get to that point of, okay, do I stay here and I just wait for that turn, or do I seek out other opportunities, or do I make opportunities for myself? And what has really stood out to me is that great things can happen when you take that leap, and the people around you who you have met and the friendships you made, they will stick by you. If you are a genuine person. Like, I think a lot of it can seem that it's very showy, it's very superficial, but actually, people are bonded by their passion and what they're doing. And when they see that you're trying to do this new thing, this exciting thing, people want to be a part of it. People want to help. And even if you just want a job at another label, or doing the thing you're doing now but somewhere else, again, people know people and they are happy to sing your praises because you're good at what you do. So it's very much a community led thing, even though it's under the umbrella of these major corporations. The thing that, like, keeps everyone going in these kind of turbulent times in music, and in creative industries in general, I'd say, is the community feel and the fact that people want to work together and people are feeling braver to do those things themselves.
I think that's incredible. I feel like that was such a wonderful pitch of the podcast as well. If you didn't convince people already to listen, I think that was a great way to do it. Can you tell me about some of the guests, or maybe just the first guest, because I don't want to give too much away, but tell me about the first episode that just came out. Who did you feature? What was that conversation like? Give me a quick overview of that first episode.
Sure. So it's my mate Jeremiah Gogo. Let's be professional. Jeremiah Gogo, and he is just super cool, really nice guy, knows everybody. He's worked at Warner, he's worked at Universal, and now he's set up his own label. So when he was at Warner and Universal, he started off in comms, basically tracking sales, like seeing what demographic is buying what, where, on what platform, all of those things. We go into it, it's fine. And he talks about his start in music. One of my questions I ask everyone is literally, what was your first job in music? Because it's so different. It is so different, and it's so fascinating to see how people get their start. We basically go through his career starting as an intern to then joining the commercials team to going more into the data and analytics of each campaign. And basically that kind of using the data to kind of predict where things are going to go next and not just being reactive, but kind of proactive. And then hit through his connections, the jobs that he lands, just from being, good at his job and a nice person. And he becomes head of data and analytics for Atlantic, which, is a very big pop label in the UK, well, across the world, really. And then he goes back to Universal and then decides, actually, after meeting a couple of guys that worked with Jay-Z, they basically said, you should be an entrepreneur and start your own thing. Like, what you waiting for? You've got all the knowledge. And then he basically does that and decides to start 314 Records. And little tidbit, he says 314 because he studied maths at uni. He is like a math geek, and 314 is like the first three numbers of pi. And that's his little nod to his maths beginnings. And that basically kind of looks at going viral through data. So kind of trying to be that label that can preempt a viral record. I mean, it's easier said than done. I really hope he could do it because that's what labels across the world are trying to do. But I feel like he's the one to break that.
That sounds so interesting. I love that too. His little nod to math. I think that's amazing. Combining, his loves, music, math, love it. Put it all together. So I think through this work and your podcast, and of course it being on Be the Change Media Network, I think when you pitched this, I was so interested in this being a lens to an industry that people don't know that much about and something that so many people might have questions about.
Mm.
And I'm sure it's very competitive. And I do think your podcast is going to share so many stories that people would love to hear. And maybe that inspires some people to take that jump and maybe try to get into the industry, or maybe even just inspire them to take a move into entrepreneurship, for example. So many different things. But I think through sharing these stories, you are making change, and hopefully you're inspiring people with these episodes. What advice would you want to share with people who might be listening to you speaking, and then to your podcast, of course, who might want to make change or inspire others, but might not know where to get started? What advice do you
Mm.
have for them?
That's such a good question. One of my guests, I won't reveal, we'll see where she comes, but she basically said someone asked her, I want to start doing enter job here in music. How do I do that? And she said, well, you better start doing it. Like, she basically was like, pick an artist that you want to work with. Maybe it's someone you know, maybe it's someone who's very emerging and doesn't have a team. Just put yourself out there and do the work yourselves. And I think we can apply that to anything. It is basically a battle of self-belief. I think having a body of work already out there behind you when you do want to apply for a specific thing is always so helpful, because especially in music, they don't always look at what you have studied. And I will never ever say to someone, don't study music, don't study music business, whatever, whatever. Like, it always helps to have that knowledge going in, but it's very much about the work that's already out there. So if you want to, start a blog, if you want to be a marketing manager, go and market an artist, like see what you can do and make a case study, like you can do it. If the passion's there, go for it. Like you literally have nothing to lose, and it's always going to pique the interest of the person you want to work with to have evidence prior to that. That's if you don't know anyone in music. Like, don't be hitting up people on LinkedIn. Like, they get that all the time. Do the work yourself, have it somewhere in the ether, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's website, whether it's socials, and then people have a reference to that. So just take the plunge in whatever capacity you want it to be. But honestly, you can do it. Like the only person stopping you is you.
It was so great to talk with Saskia, and I love that last bit of advice that she shared. Through talking with Saskia and through listening to her first episode, I've already learned so much about the UK music industry. So if you're interested in hearing more from Saskia, I've included all of the links to check out the B-side in the description of this episode. But before you head off to listen to the B-side, I want to highlight one last piece of advice from all of that great advice that Saskia shared at the end of our conversation. Change comes when you see what you can do. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can find Saskia on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I included those links in the description of this episode, as well as the links to listen to the B-side. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at Be The Change Media Network. I'm working on expanding Be The Change Media Network, which means bringing you more inspiring stories from amazing guests and incredible hosts like Saskia. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave the podcast a rating and a comment, because it will help these stories to reach, educate, and inspire more people. And I would also love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.